Imagine a wild world where fire was a conquest and survival was a daily battle. This was the beginning of everything, the Paleolithic, the era when humanity took its first steps to dominate the planet. The howling winds of ice ages, the constant threat of predators, and the relentless search for food. This was the reality our ancestors faced every single day. Yet somehow, against all odds, they not only survived, but thrived. But how did our ancestors manage to survive in such a hostile environment? And what can we learn from this epic journey? Picture yourself transported back in time. No smartphones, no supermarkets, not even the basic comfort of a permanent shelter. Just you, a few primitive tools, and the vast, unforgiving wilderness stretching in every direction. Would you survive even a single day in the world that shaped our species? The Paleolithic, also known as the Old Stone Age, is the most ancient period of human history, beginning about 2.5 million years ago and ending around 10,000 years ago. That's over 99% of human existence spent in conditions we can barely imagine today. It was during this era that the first humans developed tools, mastered fire, and began to organize themselves into groups, laying the foundations for everything we would become. The evidence of their lives is etched into cave walls across the globe. Handprints reaching out across time, telling us, we were here, we survived, we created. And from the spectacular cave paintings at Lascaux in France to the stone tools scattered across Africa, these are not just artifacts, they're messages from our distant ancestors. But what exactly characterized this period, and why is it so crucial for understanding who we are today? The answers might surprise you and challenge everything you thought you knew about human nature and our place in the world. If you love history, and want to unravel the mysteries of the great human journey, like this video, subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind channel and don't miss a single episode. Join us as we travel back to where it all began, to understand not just where we came from, but who we truly are. The story of the Paleolithic begins around 2.5 million years ago with our earliest ancestors, primitive hominids like Homo habilis, whose name literally means handy man. And let me tell you, they certainly earned that name. These early humans weren't particularly strong or fast compared to the predators that stalked the ancient savannas. They didn't have sharp claws or powerful jaws. What they did have was something far more valuable: problem-solving minds and dexterous hands. Picture this, an early human, crouched beside a freshly killed animal, carefully striking one stone against another. With each precise blow, sharp flakes break off, creating edges that could slice through tough hide and sinew. These weren't just rocks, they were the world's first technology, simple stone tools that completely changed the game. These crude implements might not look impressive to our modern eyes, but they represented an extraordinary leap forward. For the first time in Earth's history, a species was creating and using tools deliberately to modify its environment. These stone tools were essential for cutting meat, breaking bones to extract nutritious marrow, and defending against fierce predators that roamed the landscape. What's truly remarkable is how these tools evolved over time. From basic choppers and scrapers, our ancestors gradually developed more sophisticated implements, hand axes with carefully worked edges, spear points that could bring down large prey, and specialized tools for working hides and plant materials. Each innovation opened new doors and created new possibilities for survival. Here's something that might surprise you. Did you know that Paleolithic humans were already performing surgery? It sounds unbelievable, but archaeological evidence doesn't lie. Researchers have discovered ancient skulls with carefully made holes, a procedure known as trepanation. These early surgeons would use sharp stone tools to cut through the bone of the skull, creating an opening. And here's the truly astonishing part. We've found skulls showing signs of healing around these holes, meaning the patients actually survived this primitive brain surgery. Why would they perform such dangerous procedures? Some theories suggest it was done to treat head injuries or relieve pressure from bleeding inside the skull. Others believe it may have had spiritual significance, perhaps an attempt to release evil spirits thought to cause headaches, seizures, or mental illness. Whatever the reason, it demonstrates an extraordinary level of knowledge, skill, and courage. This technological revolution, beginning with the simplest stone tools, would ultimately change the destiny of humanity. It set us on a path toward becoming the dominant species on Earth. Every smartphone, every spacecraft, every marvel of modern technology can trace its lineage back to those first crude stone tools crafted by our ancient ancestors. The Paleolithic wasn't just the dawn of human history, it was the birth of human innovation. Life in the Paleolithic was far from what we might imagine today. Think about waking up not in your comfortable bed, but in a temporary shelter made of animal hides and branches, with the crisp morning air biting at your skin. This was the daily reality for our ancestors. These early humans lived as nomads, moving in small groups of 20 to 30 people, following the migrations of animals and the seasonal availability of plants. They were constantly on the move, carrying only what they could manage: their precious tools, some animal skins for shelter, and perhaps a carefully protected ember from their last fire. Hunting and gathering wasn't just a lifestyle. It was an art form that required incredible skill and knowledge. The hunters needed to understand animal behavior, weather patterns, and tracking techniques. They had to know which plants were safe to eat, which could heal, and which could kill. Every child grew up learning these critical survival skills from their elders. Here's something fascinating. These nomadic groups developed sophisticated social structures that we still see echoes of today. When a hunter brought down a large animal like a mammoth, the entire group would share in the bounty. This wasn't just about being nice, it was a clever survival strategy. After all, you might be the one coming back empty-handed tomorrow, and you'd want your group to share with you then. But life wasn't all about the daily struggle for food. These early humans developed complex forms of communication, including not just spoken language, but also gestures, cave paintings, and even music. Archaeologists have found bone flutes dating back 40,000 years. Imagine the haunting melodies that must have echoed through ancient valleys as our ancestors gathered around their fires at night. Speaking of gathering around fires, this was where some of the most important aspects of Paleolithic culture developed. As groups sat together in the evening, they would share stories, plan the next day's hunt, and teach their young. These fireside gatherings were the first classrooms, the first community centers, and the first theaters all rolled into one. Disease and injury were constant threats. A broken leg could mean death. A simple cut could become infected and kill. Yet remarkably, we've found evidence of people surviving serious injuries, suggesting that these groups cared for their sick and wounded. They developed early forms of medicine, using plants and natural materials to treat everything from wounds to fevers. The harsh conditions of the Paleolithic Age forced humans to develop one of our species' greatest strengths: cooperation. Working together wasn't just helpful, it was essential for survival. Whether it was bringing down large prey, gathering enough food for winter, or protecting the group from predators, survival depended on teamwork and communication. This was the crucible in which humanity was forged, where we learned to work together, to share knowledge, to care for each other, and to innovate. The legacy of these early survival strategies can still be seen in how we organize our societies today. Every time we share a meal with friends, tell stories around a campfire, or work together to solve a problem, we're echoing the behaviors that helped our ancestors survive the challenges of the Paleolithic Age. Imagine a world of complete darkness after sunset. Every night was a battle against cold, predators, and the unknown terrors that lurked in the shadows. That was life before fire. But everything changed when our ancestors made perhaps the most remarkable discovery in human history: the ability to create and control fire. The story of fire mastery begins around 1 million years ago, though some evidence suggests it might have started even earlier. At first, our ancestors probably collected fire from natural sources, lightning strikes or volcanic activity. They would have noticed how fire kept predators at bay and provided warmth during cold nights. But the real breakthrough came when they learned to create fire themselves. Think about the first time a human being made fire. Picture that moment of triumph when, after countless attempts of striking stones together or rubbing sticks, the first spark caught and a small flame burst into life. This wasn't just a technological achievement. It was the moment humanity gained power over nature itself. But fire did so much more than provide light and warmth. When our ancestors began cooking food, they unknowingly triggered a biological revolution. Cooking meat and plants made them easier to chew and digest, releasing more nutrients and energy. This extra energy had an extraordinary effect. It allowed our brains to grow larger and more complex. Scientists believe that cooking food was crucial in our evolution, from primitive hominids to modern humans. Here's something fascinating. Archaeological evidence shows that societies with fire had significant advantages. They could stay active after dark, extending their productive hours. They could survive in colder regions, allowing them to expand into new territories. Fire even changed how people socialized. Gathering around a hearth became a central part of human culture, creating spaces for storytelling, teaching, and strengthening social bonds. Fire also revolutionized tool-making. By heating stone before shaping it, our ancestors could create better, sharper tools. They could harden wooden spears in the fire, making them more effective for hunting. Some groups even learned to use fire to clear land and drive game during hunts. The control of fire had another unexpected benefit: better sleep. Before fire, our ancestors had to remain vigilant against nighttime predators. With a fire burning, they could finally sleep deeply and safely, knowing the flames would keep dangerous animals away. This improved sleep might have played a crucial role in our cognitive development. But perhaps the most profound impact of fire was psychological. For the first time in history, a living being could stare into the face of darkness and push it back. Fire became more than a tool. It became a symbol of human ingenuity and power, featured in countless myths and religions across the world. Think about it. Every time you strike a match or light a candle, you're connecting with this ancient legacy. You're performing an act that amazed and transformed our species hundreds of thousands of years ago. The mastery of fire wasn't just about controlling a natural force. It was about becoming human. Did you know that fire was one of the first steps in human evolution? If you're enjoying this journey through time, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Dawn of Humankind for more incredible stories about our past. And here's something to think about. What do you think was the greatest achievement of the Paleolithic Age? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When we think of art, we might imagine grand museums or modern galleries. But art is as old as humanity itself. Deep in the caves of ancient Europe, Africa, and Asia lies proof that our ancestors were not just survivors. They were artists, dreamers, and storytellers. Picture yourself standing in the Lascaux caves in France 15,000 years ago. By the flickering light of a stone lamp filled with animal fat, an artist works on the cave wall. With careful strokes using natural pigments, red and yellow ochre, charcoal, and hematite, they bring to life a powerful bison. The animal seems to move in the dancing light, its muscles tense, ready to spring into action. This isn't just a painting. It's a window into the soul of our ancient ancestors. The cave art of the Paleolithic era shows an extraordinary understanding of anatomy and movement. These artists didn't just paint what they saw, they captured the very essence of their subjects. In the cave of Altamira in Spain, the natural bumps and curves of the rock walls were used to give three-dimensional effects to the painted animals. Think about that level of sophistication. These artists were working with perspectives and natural contours in ways that wouldn't be seen again until the Renaissance, thousands of years later. But Paleolithic art wasn't limited to cave paintings. Our ancestors created delicate figurines carved from mammoth ivory, like the famous Venus of Willendorf. They crafted intricate jewelry from shells and animal teeth. They even made music. Bone flutes found in Germany show that the love of melody is at least 40,000 years old. Here's something fascinating. Many of these cave paintings were created in the deepest, darkest parts of caves, far from any natural light. To reach these galleries, ancient artists had to venture hundreds of meters into complete darkness, navigating narrow passages and dangerous drops. Why go to such extreme lengths? Many archaeologists believe these remote chambers were sacred spaces, perhaps used for religious ceremonies or initiation rites. The subjects of Paleolithic art tell us much about what mattered to our ancestors. While animals dominated many cave walls, horses, bison, mammoths, and deer, human figures were rarely depicted. When they did appear, they were often shown in abstract or symbolic forms. Some caves contain mysterious geometric patterns and handprints, ancient signatures left by artists reaching out across time to touch us today. Color played a crucial role in this ancient art. Red ochre, in particular, seems to have held special significance. This natural pigment was so important that some groups traveled hundreds of miles to obtain it. When mixed with animal fat or water, it created a paint that has lasted for tens of thousands of years, a testament to the technical knowledge of these early artists. But perhaps most remarkable is what this art tells us about human consciousness. To create art, you need to be able to imagine something that doesn't exist and then bring it into being. You need to think symbolically. The emergence of art marks a crucial moment in human evolution when our ancestors began to think abstractly and express complex ideas through symbols. These artistic expressions weren't just decoration, they were part of a rich cultural and spiritual life. The careful placement of paintings, the choice of subjects, and the use of natural cave features suggest these were spaces where stories were told, ceremonies performed, and knowledge passed down through generations. The next time you visit an art gallery or museum, remember this: the artistic impulse that moves us today is the same one that moved our ancestors to create beauty in the depths of Ice Age caves. We are the inheritors of a creative legacy that stretches back tens of thousands of years to when humanity first began to express its dreams, fears, and hopes through art. Imagine a moment that would change human history forever. Around 10,000 years ago, someone made an observation that would transform our species. If you plant a seed, it grows into food. This simple discovery marked the end of the Paleolithic Age and the beginning of something entirely new. But this wasn't a sudden change. It was a gradual revolution that began in different places at different times. In the fertile regions between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, ancient humans noticed that dropped seeds from their gathered grains would sprout and grow. In what we now call the Fertile Crescent, they began to deliberately plant wheat and barley. Meanwhile, far away in Southeast Asia, communities were learning to cultivate rice, while in the Americas, early farmers were domesticating corn. Here's something fascinating. The first attempts at farming were probably spectacular failures. Our ancestors had to learn through trial and error which plants would grow best, when to plant them, and how to protect them from weather and wildlife. They had to develop new tools, learn about seasonal patterns, and understand soil conditions, all knowledge we take for granted today. The domestication of animals followed a similar pattern. It likely started with wolves, which gradually evolved into dogs through a mutually beneficial relationship with humans. Then came sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs. These animals provided not just meat, but also milk, wool, and crucial labor power. Think about it. Before this, humans had never had a reliable source of protein or warm clothing. This agricultural revolution had profound effects on human society. For the first time in history, people could stay in one place. They built permanent homes, created storage systems for food, and developed new technologies for processing their crops. Villages grew into towns, and towns eventually became cities. The human population began to explode. After all, farmers could feed far more people than hunter-gatherers ever could. But life wasn't necessarily easier. Early farmers actually worked harder than their hunter-gatherer ancestors, spending long hours tending crops and caring for animals. Their diets became less varied, and new diseases emerged from living in close proximity to domesticated animals. Some of our most common modern illnesses, like the flu, originally came from this period of early farming. One of the most interesting aspects of this transition was how it changed human society. With farming came the concept of property. After all, if you spend months tending a field, you want to ensure you'll get the harvest. This led to the first systems of ownership, boundaries, and eventually laws. Social hierarchies developed as some families became more successful at farming and accumulated more resources than others. The end of the Paleolithic also saw the birth of new crafts and technologies. Pottery became essential for storing grain. Weaving developed to process plant fibers and wool into cloth. People learned metallurgy to create better tools. Each innovation built upon the last, creating a cascade of technological advancement that would have amazed our hunter-gatherer ancestors. Yet we shouldn't think of this transition as the triumph of civilization over primitive life. The hunter-gatherers of the Paleolithic were incredibly sophisticated in their understanding of nature, seasonal patterns, and survival techniques. Many of their innovations, like the spear thrower, the fishing net, and techniques for preserving food, are still used by traditional societies today. The legacy of the Paleolithic lives on in our genes, our behaviors, and our societies. Our bodies are still adapted for a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, which explains many of our modern health challenges. Our brains still light up with pleasure when we successfully hunt, fish, or gather wild foods. And many of our social instincts, the desire to share food, the importance of storytelling, the need for close-knit communities, were shaped during those long millennia of Paleolithic life. The transition from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic wasn't just a change in how humans got their food, it was a fundamental transformation of human society. It set us on the path to the world we know today, but it's worth remembering that this agricultural way of life represents only a tiny fraction of human history. For over 99% of our time on Earth, we lived as hunter-gatherers, and that heritage remains an essential part of who we are. As we come to the end of our journey through the Paleolithic Age, take a moment to reflect on the extraordinary story we've explored together. This wasn't just a history lesson. It was the tale of how we became who we are today. Every time you use a tool, light a fire, tell a story, or work together with others to solve a problem, you're drawing on abilities that our ancestors developed during those crucial millennia. The Paleolithic wasn't just about survival, it was about innovation, creativity, and the triumph of human ingenuity over seemingly impossible odds. Think about it. From the first stone tools to the masterpieces of cave art, from the conquest of fire to the development of complex languages, our Paleolithic ancestors laid the foundations for everything that would follow. They were the original inventors, the first artists, the pioneers who dared to imagine better ways of doing things. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at the end result of millions of years of adaptation and innovation, your capacity for abstract thought, your ability to use tools, your social instincts, and even your sense of wonder. All these were shaped during the Paleolithic Age. We are all, in a very real sense, children of the Stone Age. Understanding this period isn't just about satisfying our curiosity about the past. It's about understanding ourselves. The challenges our ancestors faced and overcame can inspire us as we face our own challenges today. After all, If they could survive ice ages and prehistoric predators with nothing but stone tools and their wits, imagine what we can achieve with all the knowledge and technology at our disposal. Before we part ways, I have a question for you. What aspect of Paleolithic life amazes you the most? Is it their survival skills, their artistic achievements, their technological innovations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on our ancient ancestors. If you've enjoyed this journey back to the dawn of human history, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might find it fascinating. Subscribe to The Dawn of Humankind for more incredible stories about our prehistoric past. And hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss our next adventure into human history. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of our ancient heritage. Remember, every time you learn something about our past, you understand a little bit more about who you are today. Until our next historical journey, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep wondering about the amazing story of human history. See you in our next video, where we'll uncover more fascinating secrets from humanity's past.